All right, it's week 15 of the fantasy football season. The first round of the playoffs are here, and it's your weekly reminder that kickers are people too. I'm going through giving you my kickers, tiers, and rankings for 25 kickers heading into week 15. Let's hop on into it. Okay, we do it every week. Our stardom every week, guys. We only got 2 now this season. This list was a lot more full, but only 2 guys we can rely on now. We got Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ka'im Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. Doesn't really matter what that matchup is. You go ahead and roll these guys out there. Trust them no matter what. They are going to get the job done for you. All right, how the mighty have fallen. Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens, arguably one of the greatest kickers of all time, but he has just not been good for us this year. He's already had 8 missed field goals, his most in a single season ever. He's missing extra points. Ravens coming off a bye. They traveled to New York, a not friendly place to kick the football. I'm going to put Tucker in the if you have to category. I don't ever want to play Tucker. Stop playing Tucker. He's just going to let you down and break your heart. Okay, Josh Karty of the Los Angeles Rams traveling to the San Francisco 49ers on a Thursday night football. Karty's been pretty kind of, solid kicker, but the Rams just don't kick field goals, man. They score a ton of touchdowns, and they go for it on 4th down a lot. This is an aggressive team with head coach Sean McVay. Again, San Francisco at night, not a lovely place to kick the football. I'm going to go ahead and bench Karty. I don't think this is a good matchup for him. It's going to be a short week, and if there are points scored, I think it's going to be 7s, not 3. So I'm going to stay away from Karty if I can afford it. I just don't think it's a good play this week. Okay, Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars, another guy I'm going to go ahead and bench. They got the Jets this weekend. The Jets defense isn't good. It's not the Jets defense we known and used to love, but Jacksonville's offense is so bad. They really can't run the football. The passing game is a little bit better with Mac Jones, Brian Thomas Jr. Sucks that Trevor Lawrence is not out there, but I just can't trust this Jaguars team. Even with they scored 10 points last week. You can't rely on this. Go ahead and sit Cam Little. There's got to be better options for you out there. Okay, how about Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins? He's been a sneaky good kicker on the season for you guys. I think people are kind of sleeping on him because, the Dolphins were really bad in the middle of the season. And when you think of the Dolphins, you think of offense, scoring touchdowns, big explosive plays. But they haven't been quite as good, and they've been a little bit less aggressive. They've been awesome with Tua back. They've been highly efficient, completing a lot of passes, moving the football, but they've been trusting Sanders to kick it, and he's been money, man. A big 56-yarder last week to send that game into overtime. Go ahead and love this matchup. They're playing indoors at the Houston Texans. Houston coming off a bye. Houston's defense really isn't that good either, but they're going to take those long field goals. Sanders has been really good. It's a good place to kick. Just like Ka'im Fairbairn, I think this is going to be an awesome kicking matchup. Go ahead and hammer home Sanders for that real high upside this week. Okay, Nick Folk against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Go ahead and put him in the if you have to category. Tennessee's offense has been really bad the last few weeks. Will Levis was atrocious last week, but they are playing the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the worst defenses in football. They can't stop anybody. My big concern is maybe they're just scoring touchdowns because of big home run plays, but there is some potential upside for you. Tennessee gets the ball down into the red area, then they Tennessee it up and don't score a touchdown, so you end up kicking a field goal, but I think it's just a little bit too risky for me. I know how bad Cincinnati's defense is, but Jacksonville's defense really wasn't anything crazy last week, and they couldn't move the football at all. But Nick Folk is pretty reliable when he gets those opportunities. So if you have to, you can start Nick Folk. All right, Saints kicker Blake Grupe. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. I kind of lean maybe you should bench him. But they are at home. They are taking on the Commanders. Commanders defense has been a lot better than we expected this season. They're also coming off a bye. But the biggest thing is we have no idea who's going to be at quarterback for the Saints. Is it going to be Desmond Ridder? Is it going to be Hayner? I just don't know who's going to be the guy. Derek Carr's out with a shattered hand. Taysom Hill has no knee. I just think it's going to be a lot of limited opportunities. I just don't think they're going to move the ball. There is some potential upside that they are indoors. They are at home. He could be kicking a couple of 50-yarders. They aren't probably going to get into the end zone, but I think it's a little bit of a risk if you want to play him. Don't expect anything crazy. Do not be upset if he doesn't do anything for you, but if you play him and he has a nice week, it would be a pleasant surprise. All right, Chad Ryland, I'm going to put him in the find to start categories at home against the New England Patriots. Patriots defense is really bad, but the Cardinals have been struggling on offense lately. Now, this is obviously a must-win situation for the Cardinals, so they're going to have to go out there. They're going to have to perform well. They're going to need the points. I think he's fine. He's been really consistent. He rarely misses kicks. He has been pretty good on the season, but there just is a limiting factor with this Cardinals offense. They are really bad in the red zone, so that is a positive. He might end up kicking 2 or 3 field goals because of it, but I am concerned that they are just going to struggle to move the football again. I don't know what's going on with Arizona. Kyler Murray, kind of always that guy that leaves you wanting more, it seems like, especially towards the end of the season. Ryland a fine start, but potentially could have a bad week. All right, Jake Elliott, my man was struggling early, was cruising as of late, and then he kind of struggling again lately. Tough matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers defense is really good. And the Eagles offense, just like they can't throw the football. It's all Saquon Barkley. It's all the running game. And I think Nick Sirianni in this kind of game is going to do some goofy stuff. I don't know if he trusts Elliott as much anymore. I think he's a fine start. I just do worry about the potential of passing up on those field goals, potentially just going for it on 4th down. It's also outdoors. It's in the afternoon, night game, almost in Philadelphia. Not the greatest kicking conditions. I'm going to put him in a fine start because Jake Elliott has the pedigree, but I am a little bit worried that Sirianni could just forego any field goals we see, and we start seeing a lot more 4th down attempts. Okay, Bengals new kicker Cade York filling in for Evan McPherson. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. They're playing Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is a little bit overrated. I think the numbers aren't quite as good. They do give up a lot of points. Bengals offense scores a ton, but it really worries me watching Cade York kick. He was available for a reason. I've just seen him miss way too many kicks. I don't think he's reliable. It's going to be outdoors. It's not going to be great kicking conditions. Put him in the if you have to. If there's really nobody else out there that you want to go and make a move for, you have Evan McPherson on the IR, and you're stuck with Cade York. You had to pick him up. I guess you can play him because the Bengals do score points. Maybe he'll make all his extra points, and you could have a low floor, but I think there's a lot of risk. He isn't very consistent. I am worried he's going to miss a couple kicks this week. All right, Younghoe Koo, I'm going to put him in the find to start category. This was a guy who was automatic. He's been really inconsistent this year. He's missing layup kicks. That's the real problem, man. He's not just missing from distance. He's missing short, easy ones. Now, they do have a good matchup. They play Monday at Las Vegas indoor stadium. That's going to help out a lot. Should be decent temperatures, but this Falcons offense is kind of bad. Kirk Cousins doesn't move the football. Now, there is a bonus that he doesn't throw touchdown passes. They aren't going to score touchdowns. They might attempt a few field goals. Looked a little bit better the last few weeks. So he's a fine start if you have to. But I don't know, man. It just feels like whenever it's a big kick, now Koo ends up missing it in critical situations. So he's a fine start, but be warned. Okay, Bills kicker Tyler Bass. I'm going to put him in the fine to start category. I almost put him in the love this matchup. They're taking on the Lions in Detroit. This should be a high-flying, all sorts of points game. The problem I'm most concerned with is that they may just be scoring touchdowns too much in this game. Field goals may be foregone, and they just go for it on 4th down. I think there's going to be a lot of points. I think defense goes out the window. So there is a really high ceiling potential upside for Tyler Bass. We could be getting in a game where the Bills struggle a little bit in the red area. The Lions are relatively good in the red zone on defense. You kick a couple of field goals out there, add in like 4 or 5 touchdowns, and you're feeling like you had a really good day. But we could also be in a situation where we're playing a 42-42 game, and you're just stuck with extra points each and every drive. So Bass has a really high potential for the ceiling, but I think it also could be limited by how good the offenses are in this game. So he's a fine start, but potentially could be a great play this week. All right, my man, Dicker the kicker. You know, we've been flirting about putting him in the start every week category. I'm going to put him in the love this matchup, but I am slightly concerned with this Chargers offense. They are super banged up. No J.K. Dobbins. They can't run the football. Not many teams can run the football against Tampa Bay anyway. They are at home in L.A., so that is obviously a bonus. But Justin Herbert's now banged up. We don't know what Lab McConkey's status is. we could get into a situation where they just can't move the football on offense and they don't score anything. I know Tampa Bay secondary is atrocious, so that could help. If Herbert is okay, Herbert can play. If they can protect him, we get Lab McConkey out there, we're going to see some moving of the football. Obviously, Harbaugh's going to kick his field goals. So I'm going to lean into the love this matchup category, but I am concerned if the injury bug does catch up to the Chargers and they're down Herbert, they're down McConkey again. It could be just a 3-0 game that they lose or a 7-0 game. It could get bad out there for them, but potentially a great start for Dicker, but I do want to see this Chargers offense one more week. All right, Will the Thrill Reichard. I'm going to put him in the fine to start category. Coming back from injury, he did miss a field goal last week against the Falcons, but he was pretty good on his extra points. The biggest thing here is, you know my rule with Vikings kickers, I can never trust Vikings kickers. They are at home. It is on Monday night against the Bears. A relatively good pass defense, but a bad run defense. The thing here is Minnesota just scores too many touchdowns. The Vikings have been on a touchdown tear. Sam Darnold is slinging it. Aaron Jones getting involved. I just don't know if there's going to be a ton of opportunities. They've been really good in the red zone the last few weeks. So if they do end up struggling in the red zone, Reichard could have a great week for you guys. So there is a very high ceiling potential. But I think that the Vikings might just end up scoring touchdowns. And you know my rule, I can never fully embrace a Vikings kicker. So Reichard here, a fine start with the potential to have a great week. All right, Matt Gay of the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category, playing a tough Denver defense, but they are kicking at altitude. So that is a little bit of a plus. Might get a little bit of extra distance there, but he's been pretty inconsistent on those longer kicks this year. Pair that with the Colts offense that is all over the place with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. We just really don't know what we're going to get out of them. Denver's defense, they have to be better than what they look like against Cleveland, right? I hope so. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Gay. I think it's going to be more touchdowns than field goals. If anything, for the Colts, they could be in for a long afternoon with that Denver run defense. Let's put him in the if you have to category. I'm not a huge fan of playing Matt Gay this week. Okay, Packers kicker Brandon McManus. Fine start this week. Packers have 10 days off, but it is kind of an interesting matchup taking on the Seattle Seahawks. It's in Seattle. Again, not an ideal place to kick the football. Could be rainy, could be cold, could be just ugly. And Green Bay's kind of weird on offense, man. I don't know what's going on. They're running the football really well, but they just aren't quite picking up the yards there. Jordan Love still looks a little bit off. The receivers are not super reliable. And again, this is another team that scores touchdowns over field goals. I do think McManus is a good play this week. He's got a pretty safe floor, I think. Maybe not the highest ceiling in the world, but I think he's a safe play. I just don't love that he's at Seattle. Could be bad weather, could be rainy. Don't want to see any of that. Nothing to kick in. But McManus, a fine start this week for you guys. All right, how about Broncos kicker Will Lutz? I think this is a sneaky great start this week. I love this matchup. Denver coming off of a bye. They are at home, and they're taking on the Colts. Not a very good defensive unit. They're kind of all over the place. I think this offense has been rocking and rolling the last few weeks. Bo Lever, not quite, but they know how to move the football. They do find ways to get into field goal position, and they get in the end zone. Will Lutz has been super reliable. We're kicking at altitude here. I think Will Lutz is a sneaky great start this week. I think he could have a huge week. We saw him kick 5 field goals 2 weeks ago against, 3 weeks ago now, against Las Vegas. And when he's not kicking field goals, he's also scoring touchdowns. This Broncos team scores on a lot of their drives. They move the football really well. I love Will Lutz this week. All right, and I love Will Lutz so much this week. I'm heading right on over to Underdog, checking it out. Will Lutz, and when you look at this, he's hit over 1.5 field goals in his last 2 games, and he's hit over 2.5 extra points made in 2 of his last 3. I talked about that 5 field goal game in Las Vegas. I'm actually going to go with the extra points, over 2.5 extra points for Will Lutz with that 1.15 juice. I think they're going to score touchdowns, get into the end zone, and Lutz is going to knock home those extra points. So when you head on over to Underdog, sign up using code THECATCH, you get our free pick 'em of the week. We got free pick 'em for Thursday night, and don't worry if you're watching after Thursday, we got our free pick 'em for the weekend slate of games. And when you sign up using code THECATCH, you get up to $1,000 in bonus deposit match. That's $1,000 bonus catch, up to a 50% deposit match when you use code THECATCH. Check out the links down below. All right, Chase McLauglin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this is a fine start. McLaughlin's been really solid this year. He's been pretty good. Chargers defense is good. They do not allow a lot of touchdowns, but we saw the Buccaneers offense kind of get bogged down against the Raiders where they couldn't really do anything in the middle of that game. Couple early touchdowns, couple of late touchdowns, not a whole lot of opportunities. I think we could see similar stuff like that against the Chargers. Really good run defense. We could see a lot of punts and not as much field goals as we like. As much as I like Chase McLauglin, I think he's a fine start out there. Just be worried about that ceiling potentially. I think it's a low scoring game and I don't think it's a lot of field goals. I think it's more touchdowns. Looking at a lower scoring type of affair against that great Chargers defense. Buccaneers kind of in a weird spot right now, but they're in a must-win situation to keep up in the NFC South. So McLauglin, as much as I like him, I think it's just kind of a bad matchup all around this week. A fine start. Maybe he gets in, they get into that field goal range, and he has a huge week for you, but don't expect anything too crazy from Chase this weekend. Okay, Lions kicker Jake Bates, we talked about this. He's been reliable. Dan Campbell trusts him, but I think field goals could go out the window against the Buffalo Bills. The Lions had 10 days off. They're going to be looking to score touchdowns. This could be a game in the 40s, like I said. That's the only limiting factor here with him. Just like I said with Tyler Bass, I think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game. I just think it's a lot of touchdowns, not field goals. They went for it 5 times on 4th down against Green Bay. Now, that might just be a Packers thing, but I think the Lions are going to keep doing it. They have to stay aggressive. They have to keep winning games. My Vikings are just lurking there, so I think field goals are going to get thrown out the window this week with the Lions, but there is always that potential that Jake Bates has a monster weekend where they do end up kicking a lot of field goals and they aren't quite as aggressive in the red area like we saw against Green Bay. So Jake Bates, a fine start. Just know potentially a low floor, but also a potential for a very high ceiling if we get those field goals we need. Okay, Chiefs kicker Matthew Wright. We don't know what the kicking situation is. Harrison Butker is eligible to return from the IR. And I think both these guys can kind of go in the same spot. With Butker coming off the IR, they're at Cleveland. Kansas City's offense has been bad in the red zone. I think these are both fine starts. I am a little bit worried with Wright after I saw that game-winning field goal go off the upright, doinking it. He doesn't have a lot of leg. He's supposed to be an accuracy guy, and he still looks a little bit shaky. Butker coming off the injury, I just think it's going to be bad kicking conditions in Cleveland. Not a great place to kick the football. And it's going to be cold. It's going to be ugly. I just think they're fine starts this week. If you have Butker and you want to roll Butker out there, I think that's fine. If you have Wright, roll him out there. That's fine. There could be potential for a high ceiling. Again, we know Kansas City's bad in the red zone. They get the ball to the 5-yard line and get stopped. You're going to have a lot of short, easy field goals, which you do love to see. And Andy Reid takes those points. I got to give it to him. He is a very kicker-friendly head coach, as we've seen. But I think the Chiefs, could score some touchdowns, maybe get stuck kicking a little bit longer field goals, and the opportunities for misses are there. Go ahead, roll those guys out there if you want to, but just know probably a medium floor, potentially a high ceiling, but a little bit risky. Okay, Niners kicker Jake Moody. I think this is a good start. I think this is a fine start for you this week. Moody's been a little bit inconsistent. He had a couple of misses there when he was coming back from injury, but all around solid. The Rams defense is not the best in the world. We just saw Buffalo light them up. They are able to get after the quarterback. And the Niners are looking good with Brock Purdy healthy. He was slinging that thing last weekend. So I think Moody's a fine start, but I think it's a pretty low ceiling overall. I think they're going to be scoring more touchdowns than field goals. Pretty safe floor with Moody, but I just don't think he's in for a huge, huge week. So if you just want consistent points, I think Moody's a good play. If you need a big-time weekend from somebody, I don't think Moody is the guy for you. But if you aren't worried about that at the kicker spot, go ahead. You can play Moody. Think it'll be fine on Thursday. Okay, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. This Seahawks offense is kind of weird. They're kind of all over the place. The Green Bay defense isn't good, but they do force a lot of turnovers. They do get a lot of stops. I think, again, the weather could be a factor. It's Seattle. It's rainy. It's cold. It's ugly. Who the hell knows what's going on there? I think he's a if you have to category. There is no real ceiling to Jason Myers. He's never going to have a monster week for you, and he'll probably miss a kick if you need him to make a big kick for you. So if you have to, Seattle's offense, has been a little bit better the last few weeks. I'm just still not in love with it. Put him in the if you have to category. I'm not a huge fan of Myers this week. Okay, Cairo Santos, kind of the weirdest guy, I think, to deal with this week. He's had his kicking issues. He's had kicks block. He's got the Vikings in Minnesota on Monday night. That place has been a haven for opposing kickers over the last few years. But this year, not so much. Opposing kickers are missing kicks left and right. There is some voodoo going on in Minnesota with kickers on the opposing team. But the Vikings defense is really good in the red zone. They do not allow a ton of touchdowns. They force field goals. I think the Bears are going to be able to move the football. Cairo Santos could have a horrible, horrible game. He could be an easy bench for you this week. He could also have an amazing game, and you could stick him in the love matchup. Like, he could have 4 or 5 field goals. Vikings defense gets stops in the red zone. They move the football, though, the Bears. I'm going to put him in I think you can risk it. If you want to risk it, he's a great start. There could be a potential for the highest ceiling of anybody this week. But I also think he's the biggest risk, and he could be a bench for you this week. So I'm going to stick him in the if you have to category. I just don't know if I want to tempt the gods that have been going on there. But if you want to risk it, if you need the points, he plays Monday. He could have a huge day for you. He's probably available for you guys. So if you want to roll the dice, go ahead, play Cairo Santos on Monday night and hope for the best. I do like that that's probably going to, you're going to know what you need heading into that final 2 games of the weekend. So give me Cairo Santos as a if you have to category, but again, could have the best week of anybody, could also have the worst week. All right, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys, he's back in business, baby. Put him in the love category this week. Great matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers defense has been a lot better than they were earlier in the season. They were kind of the butt of every fantasy joke, how terrible they were on defense, but they've been better. They've been getting stops from people, but this Cowboys offense has looked relatively good. Rico Dowdle is running the football really well. We got CeeDee Lamb out there still making big plays. Cooper Rush is not a complete disaster at quarterback. So I think Aubrey's a good play this week. It is in Carolina. It is outdoors. Could be a little bit chilly, but Aubrey's been super, super reliable. He had a little bit of hiccups there in the middle of the season, as one can expect for a guy who's been so good to start his NFL career. But I think it's a great matchup for you this week. I think Aubrey has a couple of big field goals for you guys. He's back to what we used to know and love with Brandon Aubrey. Go ahead and hammer this matchup against the Panthers this week. But that's going to do it for us this week. Let me know down in the comments below any of your kicking questions as we head into this first round of the fantasy football playoffs. If you haven't already, drop a quick like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We got all the daily fantasy football content you guys could ever need. Your waiver wire targets, your must starts at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back for every single matchup. Our boomer bust starts of the week, those guys, the sneaky guys that could have a huge impact on your roster. Bring home that first round playoff victory for you guys. And if you're in the toilet bowl, potentially ruin somebody else's life so you don't finish in last place and get that punishment. Be sure to check out the links down below. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.